I'm Nick Altmeyer with linkinglewiscounty.com. We're here this afternoon with Lewis County Manager Ryan Piche for our monthly This Month in County Government segment, which normally we do the day before the board meeting, but this month we're doing it the day after. Based on the holiday and the busy schedule with everything that was going on before last night's board meeting, we didn't really get time to schedule the interview for this month beforehand. So just for some of you have asked, so that's why we're doing it a day late. So a lot of activity at the board meeting last night.
Yes.
Kind of I shouldn't say for once we got a lot done, but just a lot of action came to fruition at the same time. So
yep,
I would agree. A lot of things happened last night at the board meeting. So we're just going to go down through the list really quick and just kind of give a recap of some of the bigger items that happened.
Absolutely.
So basically, before the board meeting, Transitional Living Services was here, and they gave a presentation to the board. They run the behavioral health, mental health clinic over at the Lavelle Commons building. So that's outsourced to them. It used to be a county-run program. So basically, they were requesting a little bit more money for this year. They've ended up taking a loss the last few years. They requested $60,000, and I think you said the board ended up agreeing to give them $30,000.
Correct. So it wasn't that long ago that the county ran its own mental health department, and in 2015 it was decided by the Board of Legislators to privatize that operation, and that's when Transitional Living Services, known as TLS, stepped in and took over that operation. At the time when the county was running it, it was costing us about $500,000 a year to operate. Over the next 4 years that TLS has had it, it hasn't cost the county anything, but they've run they've run some deficits when it comes to Medicaid and Medicare paying bills. That doesn't always cover the full expense of service, and so they were requesting a little bit of assistance for their Lavelle operation to ensure that it could keep going at least a reasonable level, and the board was able to agree to allocate $30,000 towards that to help cover some of those losses for this year.
And that'll come out of contingency funds.
Correct.
For this year.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And basically during their presentation, they had a number of breakdowns for just the Lavelle operation and kind of showed where some of the issues they were running into. So kind of backed it up and showed the board why they needed the extra money.
Yep. It was a very good presentation, and TLS provides a very necessary service in Lewis County. So it's important that we support them.
All right. We had basically the board set a public hearing for October 2nd to pass to pass a local law to override the tax levy limit of 2%. Basically, that's a formality that happens every year, just in case it's needed. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a plan to exceed the tax cap, but it's just kind of so that public hearing will be on October 2nd, and then they'll vote to move that forward or not.
Correct.
At that time.
Yep.
Okay.
So we talked about this last year and probably the year before. Went through it with previous county managers. But in order to go over the tax cap, you have to have public hearings. You have to change, set a local law, and there's no guarantee that we'll go over the tax cap. But as we form our budget, since it's still only early September here, we want to keep all options open, and so we traditionally pass this local law that gives us
because it's kind of a lengthy process.
It is.
So if you get down to the end of November and realize that you might need to exceed it a little bit, then you don't have the time and place to do all that.
Absolutely. Correct.
Basically, the law gets rescinded at the end of the year if you decide you don't need it or not.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
All right. We have on here really quickly, a contract was awarded to Cedar Crest Construction for the shingled roof replacement at the clerk's office. Previously, they were awarded the painting contract too, so they'll be doing some work out on the front of the old courthouse.
They will.
This fall?
Fact, I would think in the next couple weeks you should see some crews out in the front of the courthouse painting the facade and doing all the window treatments. And then that same company will be hopping up to the roof. And there's a tiny shingled roof that's actually right above this old clerk's building, right above where we're sitting, Nick. And that will be, replaced.
Okay. Quickly, the board did pass a resolution unanimously designating the Lewis County Chamber of Commerce as the tourist promotion agency. So they're committing $40,000 in matching funds for promoting tourism promotion for the county. So I think that falls into the I Love New York.
Correct. So when we designate the chamber as our tourist promotion agency and allocate certain resources towards that, the New York State will match our investment and leverage Lewis County's promotional material in a lot of the I Love New York and New York State promotional material. So it's something that we've done pretty consistently over the years.
Okay.
And it always is a little bit awkward because it falls just before our budget
time.
So you got to make a decision on that line item before all the other ones.
Right. $13,992 was transferred for Weights and Measures Department. Basically, last year, Lewis County entered a shared services agreement with Jefferson County to share a is it director of weights and measures?
The whole department, actually.
The whole department. Okay. And so costs came in a little bit more than expected?
Yeah, in the original contract, we had set forward an amount between, with an agreement with us and Jefferson County about how the expenses for the department would be split. But there was also a little bit of flexibility in case our projected, expenses came in a little bit differently, and they did. They came in a little bit differently. So it was a little bit more from our share, $13,000 that we had to kick in. But we're still experiencing significant savings from this shared service initiative, and it's still a great idea and has been working out quite well.
And Weights and Measures, for anybody that don't know, basically they're the ones that check like the gas pumps and make sure that they're
when you're buying a gallon of gas, you want to make sure you get a gallon of gas, and that's what the Weights and Measures does. You probably see their stickers on the gas pumps, and in grocery stores, if you buy a pound of lettuce, you want to make sure you get a pound of lettuce.
Right.
And so they check those types of things.
Making sure scales are accurate,
Absolutely.
dispensing units are accurate, things like that.
Okay. Absolutely.
All right. One thing that's been going on for a while, so we can announce today that the Drug Task Force is officially up and running with the addition of a part-time DA investigator. So the board did approve that position last night through the end of the year. So it will sunset in December 31st, depending on next year's budget, if that position falls into the budget for next year, if there's room or not.
Correct. So the the thought process was that some additional resources are better than none at all, and though we don't know exactly where the 2019 budget is going to fall specifically yet in terms of all the different departments and their operations, the board felt that it was important enough to give the district attorney and the sheriff authority to move forward with an additional part-time investigator for drug-related activity in the county from now until the end of the year, and then depending on the 2019 budget, that could continue on into 2019. Okay.
And quickly, just to mention that the board did approve transferring funds from the not sure which account it came from, but basically upgrading the 63 county PCs to Windows 10.
So that's from our
Capital Data Processing?
Capital Data Processing account, correct. Yep. So it's money that we set aside for upgrades such as this, and when the time comes to make those upgrades, we've got the money set aside for that purpose, which is exactly what it was used for yesterday.
Okay. And the board also agreed to award a contract for the security position at the Department of Social Services. So that position's been there for the last few years. I think it went out to bid recently. So basically they're just awarding the contract. It will be a new entity, but
yes, the firm that had been performing the work, had the security contract at the DSS building, was no longer interested in providing that service in Lewis County. So we had to send it out for a new bid for a new company, and last night we awarded that bid.
And we've also been following through the in courts and law committee meetings throughout the summer. Some schools had expressed interest in a student resource officer.
Yes.
Namely, Harrisville had approved that in their budget.
Yes.
So last night during the public comment session, we had the superintendent of Harrisville came, and was kind of looking for an update on what the county was leaning toward with that position. Previous to that, I think last year was the first full year that South Louis had a student resource officer.
Correct.
And the courts and law committee's kind of been trying to figure out, I don't want to say a precedent, but kind of a policy to how to handle that. I know with South Louis, you guys picked up paying for the benefits while the school paid for the salary. And they were trying to set a policy if that's something that would happen with Harrisville as well. So I know they meet again tomorrow, so maybe we'll have a little bit more information on that after tomorrow's meeting.
Courts and law will certainly be talking more about this. I think that everybody agrees it's a great idea. It's something that we certainly want to support. With 5 school districts in the county, even if the school districts pick up the salary for each 5 of those sheriff deputies, that's still 5 fringe benefits, retirement, insurance that the county has to pick up, and that adds up. And so I think that the board is just being thoughtful about how we want to set a precedent for the future. There probably will come a day where we'll be asked to supply 5 resource officers, 1 for each school. And if that's the case, we want to know exactly how that process is going to happen and where the funding will come from. So I think they're trying to iron out those details. But as I said, in general, there seems to be wide consensus that it's a good idea and it's a good thing for the community. So I think it'll we'll move forward with those.
And Harrisville kind of being on the northern fringe of the county with response times and things like that. That I think they feel comfortable with having somebody actually on staff.
Yep, absolutely. Makes sense.
All right. So thank you for your time today.